I've heard that edibles, like you should only eat like a small portion.
Yes. No, I'm not. Yeah, I know how they work.
Well, no, but one would think, oh, here is a small-sized gummy. I can eat this whole thing.
That's what I thought.
But you can't. You can only like eat the foot.
No, that might be propaganda, or you might be seeing some actual size like bears. If people are making big actual size, these are like a Sour Patch Kid size. Okay. I take one, and it does, it's good. And then like I gotta have another because there's so many colors, so I have two. So I have a red one and a green one.
Okay.
And then there's a yellow one, so I'll probably have that.
All right.
There's no more red ones because the first one I had was red before I had the other two.
Okay.
But it's a bag of 8, so it was a bag of 8. Oh, now it's a bag of 2.
Oh.
Hey everyone ever, and welcome to 20th Century Pop, the show where we try to understand the present while living in the past. My name is Tim Blevins.
And I am Bob Canning.
And you're very happy to be here, apparently.
That was my friend's clap. That was...
Oh, shit. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Because of the theme song.
That's our opening theme song. Our opening dialogue theme song break.
That's our music clearance rights for the year. Guess I won't be singing any of those fine Harry Connick Christmas carols next month that he wrote, because we spent it all on the applause of the Friends theme. Are you a fan of that theme? Many years later, do you like it as a song?
I like it as a song.
I'll be there for you.
I do. Yeah. I do. I don't mind it as a song. There was a time where I was, I didn't need to hear it again. But now that I'm hearing it again, because I'm rewatching the series, it doesn't bother me.
Do you like the Party of Five theme?
Which one is that? I can't.
That's the Everybody Wants to Be Closer to Free. Everybody wants to be like they want to be, I think, or something like that.
Sure.
It was it was on the radio. Song. It was one of the first songs I ever downloaded for iTunes in 2000.
So you like that theme?
I did.
Yeah.
I actually enjoyed it as a song. I was always embarrassed to play it at work or something because I knew it was the theme of the Party of Five. It's like if Ghostbusters comes on. Like I love the song Ghostbusters, but I'm embarrassed if it comes on, especially if it's not Halloween.
That is a hard one to listen to when it's not Halloween.
The Ghostbusters theme?
Yeah.
It's pretty catchy, and it's always a good movie. The movie doesn't take place at Halloween.
It's I Want a New Drug catchy.
Oh, you want? Okay, yeah, I mean that's true. I guess if you want to go into that,
we don't have to. We have a whole other episode planned.
We're binging a show today that we're going back to. This might be the first time we've returned to a topic, or the second time we've returned to this topic. So the second time we've returned to a topic where we watched a bunch of Friends episodes. We actually watched 6 Friends episodes.
Yes. Did you watch 6 or did you watch 5?
I watched 6, I thought. Is that 94 to 99?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, but there's one in there that I skipped.
So when it comes time to monologue about that, I'll be set.
Yes. No, I have plenty to say about it. It's not like I don't know the episode. I just chose not to watch it in this particular
Really? Because
binge.
I find it was helpful to watch them. Because I don't remember all of these the way that I watched them now. Like my memory is different from my experience with them.
I agree. I have an episode where it's very clear that I have a differing opinion these days.
So why are we doing these episodes? That might be a worthwhile thing to point out, and then we'll get right into it because we've been going for a bit.
Episodes, yes, these are the annual Thanksgiving episodes that Friends was so kind to do every year.
And so what we did, we're looking at just the ones from the 90s, because through the rules of the show, we can't transcend into discussing the 21st century, or 9 listeners are going to be confused. But Friends premiered on NBC in 1994, and that very first season, the 9th episode of that first season, because of its placement in the month, was a Thanksgiving episode. Their first one, and this one was entitled "The One Where Underdog Gets Away." Something I found in watching these episodes, because normally when we do a binge and podcast, it's like 4 in a row in release order or something. This is 1 episode per year for the first 6 years of the show. So in just watching these episodes, what I'm finding is there's a lot of plot that you're expected to know.
Yeah, no, I agree. This first episode isn't really... There's no plot. It's really kind of a sitcom trope episode.
It is very sitcom-y, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to say there is some plot in, there's some character development, but there's not a whole lot of stakes in it, really.
Yeah.
What, quickly, like in a sentence or two, what's the general gist of this episode?
The general gist is that everybody's plans for Thanksgiving was separate, but one by one, everything goes wrong for each individual, and they all end up back together at Monica's apartment for Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm. That's true, because you've got like Rachel's trying to get home for the holidays, but she can't get enough money in tips for the plane ticket.
Oh, she's actually trying to go skiing to Vail.
Oh, is it not home? It's skiing,
yeah.
Yes. But but her family's there, I guess. She wants to get to her family.
It's a family trip.
Ross and Monica find out that their parents are going somewhere else for the holidays, so that's changing their tradition. We learned that Chandler hates the holidays. This kind of establishes this, I feel like. Yes. It's kind of a running gag, and maybe that's why they go back to Thanksgiving, that Chandler hates Thanksgiving because...
That's when Chandler learned that his parents were getting divorced. And I think that's all the details they gave, right? I mean, we learned more about his parents. I think have we already met Morgan Fairchild? Or does
she comes
later?
I think that's a later episode. That's his mom in a later one. And that also does a lot to build him. I like that we're starting with this episode because I've recently, and I think you were too, I've rewatched some of the first season just out of curiosity. And early on, Chandler is not much of a character. He's, in my point of view, he's jokes. He's, all the gestures that we've come to know, and that's fun. But there's not much to him. Watching him go through 10 episodes, or I'm sorry, 6 episodes, so 6 seasons here, I see that they get a grip on kind of what he is, and I feel like the seeds are landed here. I feel like if there's a character arc for Chandler throughout all of Friends, it's that I think he's trying to lay claim to a family that he never had. Like, I think he's trying to be sincere. He's trying to be honest, healthy. I mean, the show ends with him and Monica together. The series ends with him and Monica together. Spoilers for Friends. About to raise kids and all this. And I feel like that kind of starts in this episode because he is sort of a spoiled rich kid whose parents didn't love him the way that he wanted. He didn't get the connection he wanted. So he makes jokes to keep people at a distance. He doesn't know how to have a healthy relationship because his examples are off. He doesn't enjoy things. I like that as the series goes on, he gets a little more, we'll see too. I think we'll see maybe even in two episodes from here, he gets more cynical. Like Chandler is at his best, I think, when he's cynical, when he's hurt, when he's mad. And so I'm glad he figures out his life eventually. It's less interesting once he gets together with Monica, but I feel like this episode, if nothing else, establishes that. And it's interesting because since we go back to Thanksgiving every season, we're seeing his interaction with this holiday. There is some growth more than the other characters because I never really think of Chandler as a character who grew much before, but he does, I think. I mean, I do like the character. I do like Chandler. I like him less than I used to, but I still like him. Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned the character arc. I mean, the character arc is captured in these episodes, which I think is the point you're making. Having just watched these, you really see him progress beyond everyone else in the cast. It's Chandler's story. Each Thanksgiving can be seen as Chandler's story. So you get the intro here in the first episode, and then as we progress, you see how he warms to it and he finds that family that he's looking for up until the last episode that we're going to talk about, where he is involved with Monica.
And that's like a happy accident, right? Like that can't be something they had planned.
I doubt they planned that. I doubt it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that is a neat little accident.
No, I like that and setting it at Thanksgiving gives it something. Like you can do it. It's a Wonderful Life with Christmas. You can have the I'm Getting Older with birthdays. I like that this show, and again, it's not like it's a stretch. Other shows do this, but I like that this show seemed to have chosen Thanksgiving as the marker of each year passing. Like they don't do a New Year's episode every season. They don't do these other things, but Thanksgiving is there. And I get it. It's a group getting together. I mean, this first episode, this idea of kind of Monica's throwing her first Thanksgiving in her apartment and all that, I could relate to that. I did that. I remember the first year I didn't go home for Thanksgiving, and a friend of mine and we made dinner for a friend and her mom and our roommates, and we did it together. And there was something, I think the show is about kind of like building a new home, everything out of college when you're creating your new microcosms. And I think setting it around a holiday, because we were talking earlier about what Thanksgiving growing up, family holidays, it sounded like it was intimately just your family for you. Do you remember your first Thanksgiving away from home?
It was probably when I moved to California after rooming with you in Boston for a while. Because when I was in Boston, I would make that trip home for Thanksgiving. I don't think I missed a Thanksgiving while I was in Boston. And my home was, a 5-hour, 6-hour bus ride away. So yeah, it would have been out here. And we ended up doing a similar thing where the friends that were out here in the area and couldn't make it back to their families, we got together for a little Thanksgiving dinner. I don't know if we did it exactly on Thanksgiving Day, because maybe some of them were able to get home, but we all still wanted to hang out. So maybe it was the night before or that weekend around Thanksgiving. But yeah, we did a little friend thing.
Yeah, I think that, and again, that's probably what draws me back to this show now. Like, there are things about the show, and we've talked about this before, friends that don't age well. There are things that probably haven't maintained the humor that they had. In this first episode, there's a plot that's related to Ross. In this first season, we find out that Ross and his ex-wife Carol are expecting a child, but Carol is now dating her girlfriend Susan, so they're going to raise the child together. So there's like a triangle going on there with Ross trying to be the father figure, be involved. And it's an interesting plotline because Ross is actually very uncomfortable with the idea of lesbians. I think this whole series at times is a bit uncomfortable, but Ross is, and as a character trait, that's interesting. It's believable. I'm not saying it's not a good trait as a person, but none of us are fully formed when we come into adulthood. And I think there's something interesting to Ross, who has the jealousies of this person is with my ex and getting all the attention of the child I helped conceive. But there's also that he's just not comfortable with it. And I know I feel like that could have been a plot line to go to. Like, it's played off for jokes. He gets some lines in it. I mean, I don't think they're necessarily derogatory to Carol and Susan, but that's kind of a missed opportunity. I feel like I feel like I wanted to, I feel like we don't like Ross. I feel like we've stated before we're not a fan of Ross, and I would have liked to have watched his discomfort actually be a bad trait. Like, instead of it being a chance for jokes kind of things. There's some weird jokes in this about it, and I'd like to see Ross coming to grips, and I guess he does a little bit. He's coming to grips with being a father despite having to share the child, and they never really follow up on it. But I don't know. I feel like there's a missed opportunity there to make Ross something.
Right. Yeah, that was never the focus. It was, like you say, just an opportunity for some uncomfortable jokes.
I forget that this show is, at times, I see it more now than then, because at the time I thought it was a breakthrough show. It was a different show, but it's very sitcom-y in parts. It needs to do some contrivances to get people in the room. It needs to do some contrivances where people can just be on the other side of the couch talking and no one will hear them. Like all of those.
There's a big one we can talk about in this next episode too.
Okay. Well, why don't we move on to that? But before we do, I guess.
Yeah.
So this particular episode, do you think it? I thought we could look at it for each of them. Does this need to take place on Thanksgiving? This particular episode?
Yeah, I think this really definitely does. Because it does exactly what you say. It shows their progression into adulthood. The first time that they don't have their family around this very special holiday, special to a lot of people and to all of them. They all have special things they want to do with their families because it's Thanksgiving and it's not happening. And it's also key that Chandler doesn't want to do anything at this time because we learn more about him. So yeah, this is definitely a Thanksgiving episode.
Well, jumping ahead a year to 1995, Season 2, Episode 8 was an episode called The One with the List. This was written by David Crane and Marta Kaufman, who are the co-creators of the show. I think they also both worked on Veronica's Closet. I think Marta Kaufman recently created Grace and Frankie. And this is the one that I guess is not really much of a Thanksgiving episode.
Not a Thanksgiving episode. No part of it takes place on Thanksgiving Day.
Well, it takes place leading up to Thanksgiving.
But
they
not even
reference
really.
Thanksgiving.
It's referenced in one quick passing. So so I think they realized the timeline of where this episode would air. It makes sense to reference the holiday, but it's not a Thanksgiving episode. There's really no focus on Thanksgiving. Again, it doesn't happen on Thanksgiving Day, and the plot of the episode has nothing to do with the holiday.
Well, season 3's Thanksgiving episode, episode 9, called "The One with the Football." It aired in 1996. Written by Ira Ungeleiter, which is the name I always saw in the credits. I might be mispronouncing it. I apologize. Ira Ungeleiter worked on the first 3 seasons of the show. Uniglider?
That's what I'm going to say.
But wrote about 34 episodes, or worked on 34 episodes at least. Also created the Weber Show. Worked on Veronica's Closet, How I Met Your Mother. Pretty big sitcom writer. And this episode comes from what I think is my favorite season, the 3rd season. And it's set at Thanksgiving.
Yes.
And it's kind of, the last one would have been like this too, but we're saying that one wasn't a Thanksgiving one. This one does rely on knowledge of continuity of the show. This one, you need to know that Chandler was recently broken up with by his ex-girlfriend, Janice. I was trying to figure out if Rachel and Ross were together. They're not, are they?
No, they are. They are together.
They are together. Okay. Yeah. Was that jarring for you when you're watching these episodes? Did you have to take a moment to place yourself in the continuity of where are we at?
A little bit, but not really. It was enough, and I'm familiar enough with these episodes and these seasons because, yes, this is a Binge and Podcast of these episodes just recently, but it's not like I haven't seen these episodes at least 10, 12 times, over the course of the last 20 years.
But is this an episode a casual viewer could just pick up? Like if you just happen to be flipping around, it's like, oh, it's a Thanksgiving episode. Would it make sense?
If you're not familiar with the show, no, I don't think it would make sense. I think, maybe Ross and Rachel were together at some point and you'd easily put it together that they're together in this episode. But then there are other episodes we'll talk about where certain things are like, wait, what? Huh? What's going on? How did that happen? Why?
This was an episode that I thought would seem real to you. I felt it was contrived. They go out, they play touch football, and they get into a fight. I enjoy the episode, but I just feel like this is something people do. But it is, huh?
Oh, totally.
You used to do this.
I did this. Yeah, I did this. I loved this episode when it first aired because this was what we did. When there was
as a real tradition.
There was one year, I don't think it was Thanksgiving per se, but there was one year we had a friend over to the house on a Sunday during football season, and at halftime we decided to go outside and throw the football around, and it was snowing, and it was just that kind of cool moment that I enjoy in sports and in movies and whatnot, where you get to throw the football around with friends and family. You're not really playing
the pigskin.
The pigskin.
Did you get to toss the pigskin?
Put on your leather helmets and run around. And so, yeah, I really liked this episode when it first aired. I didn't like it so much on this reviewing.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I didn't like how everybody was I initially kind of liked how everybody was at each other's throats. But yeah, Joey and Chandler's little petty fight over the Swedish or Danish girl in this episode, that just kind of annoyed me. Ross and Rachel, actually not Ross and Rachel, Ross and Monica. I did like this. This is kind of a foundation for the series. I don't know if we see much of their competitiveness, or Monica's especially. Yeah, we've seen,
or that they're brother and sister. I feel like that gets lost sometimes. I like the dynamic of them as brother and sister. I also like that they are geeks. Like this, yeah. We'll see this in some later episodes. They are geeks. They are kind of.
They're not cool.
They weren't popular. No, they're not cool. That's funny. I liked that a lot. This episode, they're jerks in this episode. Ross fat shames Monica. The weird Joey and Chandler playing for the girl, like whoever wins the football gets to ask her out.
And that the girl is totally okay with this, it seems.
But she's not, though.
But she is. They force
She
her.
winds up
They force her to pick, though, before she gets annoyed and finally walks away. Like any normal person, any real human being wouldn't have done what she did. But she's in a sitcom, so you go with it. But still, that was hard to watch. It wasn't. I didn't enjoy the fact that this is completely a sitcom type of thing. I think the series, while being a sitcom and being funny, does a good job of bringing some reality to that humor. And this wasn't really too realistic to me.
That particular aspect, because I feel like we were saying this before, this is an episode where Chandler he's trying to get over a bitter heartbreak. He's struggling, and that's when he's the best Chandler. Like I was saying, a bitter Chandler is the best Chandler. I feel like there's more cynicism in this humor.
Yeah.
I feel like, again, in terms of a story arc, we're getting it. I feel like that's real. I don't know. I think the show works best when there is tension between the friends. I think it's when they're arguing or when, the whole will they or won't they is much better than they are kind of thing. Like I like that. And I think you get meaningful character moments out of that. But I don't know. This one, I really enjoyed watching this episode. It's interesting that you aren't a fan of it.
Well, I agree that it is, you get more out of when they're at each other, when they're not always getting along. I feel like this episode, on this reviewing of it, does that too much. There's too much opposing forces going on in each storyline. And maybe that's why it just rubs me the wrong way now. Because you've got Ross and Monica going at it. You've got Joey and Chandler going at it. You got Rachel kind of being dismissed by everybody. And I think Phoebe's the best part of the episode to me because she's sort of aloof and above all of that and just enjoying her free-spirited self in the episode, which is a lot of fun.
She's also wearing a shirt with Rachel's mom on it.
That's true.
She's wearing a That Girl t-shirt.
That's true. And I did make a note of, was this before or after we met Rachel's mom?
I want to say it was after, but I don't know when we met. I'm not sure when Marlo Thomas showed up.
Yeah.
I don't know. This episode's light. Nothing really gets resolved.
True.
I feel like you can pick this episode up and you wouldn't have to necessarily know it. They do a pretty good job of telling you Chandler just broke up, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. I feel like when I think of holiday episodes, maybe it's because of how we watched stuff last season. Like this is one that has to take place at Thanksgiving.
I don't think so.
No, it probably doesn't. You're right. They can play football anytime.
They can have a competition, and that's really what the episode was about. It wasn't necessarily about Thanksgiving.
But there's a Thanksgiving presence in it.
That's true.
You get the feeling of it.
It is a Thanksgiving episode, but I don't think it has to take place on Thanksgiving.
And you weren't a fan.
Not. It was really weird. This was probably my least favorite episode of all the ones we rewatched. Whereas historically, I've always really enjoyed this episode. It was always one I liked and thought of when I thought of Friends.
Yeah, no, it came right back. Let's see if this next one does, because this next episode, season 4, the Thanksgiving episode is episode 8. It was called The One with Chandler in a Box. This would have aired in 1997. This is a part of a bit of the series where I wasn't watching it every week.
Oh, that's
we had just graduated college. Yeah, so I think I missed a lot of this one because it's an episode written by Michael Borco, who worked on this show for 3 seasons, 2, 3, 3, and 4. He wrote an episode of Clarissa Explains It All, whatever. But this is a very continuity-driven episode. Coming into this episode, I was even thrown this time because I was trying to figure, what's going on? Apparently, in the episodes previous to this, Chandler had kissed Joey's girlfriend, Kathy. So they started dating. Monica had dated Richard, an older man who was her childhood dentist.
Eye doctor.
Eye doctor, thank you. Chandler and Joey's apartment had been robbed. I mean, there's a lot that happened before this that since I've watched the show before I know, but none of it really gets explained.
No. This
definitely feels like, and by this point in the show's life, the 4th season, it was being watched every week by its fans. So I think this was a very, this show felt in motion, unlike the previous 3 that we watched.
Yeah, it's a definite leap from that football episode. Because like you're saying, you can pull that out and watch that anytime and not really have to worry about it. But this, and then I think all the following episodes really rely on the fact that you know these characters, you're with them every week, and they each have an ongoing, evolving storyline.
Which I like in the bigger continuity. I just think as a holiday episode, it's it's a little jarring. Like, it's not about Thanksgiving.
No, it's not about Thanksgiving. And at this point, yeah, I mean, your Thanksgiving episodes aren't going to be about Thanksgiving per se.
And this is almost a Christmas episode because they're all setting up who their secret Santas are going to be for Christmas. This kind of lumps them both together.
Yeah, we'll call it a holiday episode.
That's a holiday episode. Watching this reminded me how much I enjoy. Paget Brewster plays Kathy.
She's so great.
Who's great. She and Paul Rudd, I feel like, were the best guest stars to ever come on the show. They really fit in it. I
absolutely hated that they made Kathy cheat on Chandler and leave the show. She could have been on the show for like 2 more seasons. She was amazing. I loved her.
You don't really get a sense of that in this episode.
No, not really. No, I guess if you're just watching this episode. But I have a strong fondness for Kathy.
No, I thought she was great. She really fit into the show, and it made sense.
Yes.
The show didn't always get this, and I feel like, a lot of shows, it's like, it's instead of Monster of the Week, it's Date of the Week. It's like, let's bring another character for someone to date. Monica's trying to go on dates, or Joey's going on dates, and let's give them one defining characteristic. He's a food critic, or she has a fake leg, which gets referenced in this episode. But yeah, the Paget Brewster Kathy character actually, it made sense why her and Joey hooked up, but it made sense why her and Chandler would get together because they had similar sensibilities of comedy. So I like that. I like that setup. And so this episode actually has a pretty strong emotional through line.
Yeah.
Joey had
seen the previous episodes.
If you had seen the previous episodes, Joey had walked in, I think, and saw them kissing, or Chandler told him. I don't even remember. But somehow Chandler and Kathy hook up.
Yeah, he catches them kissing.
He does, okay.
Because one of his whole arguments throughout this whole storyline is that if he had just told him, then things would have been different. But because you lied to me, this is why.
I feel like they have that conversation in the previous episode where Chandler does start to tell him he's interested in her and that Joey is accepting, and then he says they've already kissed, and that's when he gets mad.
What we should have, a next episode should be a binge and podcast of all the previous episodes to the Thanksgiving episodes.
The pre-Thanksgiving. But basically it's set up that Joey and Chandler are roommates. Joey is mad and not talking to Chandler because of what's going on with him and Kathy. And so somehow it winds up that this is what it is. It references an episode where they were robbed, where Joey got locked in this cabinet while someone robbed the apartment, which is a pretty ridiculous thing. And while he was in there, he was thinking about how he let down Chandler. So when Chandler's saying, "What can I do to make you forgive me?" he decides that we have a big box. Chandler will crawl into that during Thanksgiving, just sit in the box and think about what he's done.
Yeah. Pretty silly.
Saying it out loud, that's ridiculous. That is a ridiculously dumb plot.
But they set it up pretty well. They set it up well. Like Chandler says it to Joey as sort of like just an aside, ridiculous statement. If I could do that, I would. And then Joey, being Joey, was like, "Oh, well then let's do it."
And there's some real emotion in that. Like Joey is actually hurt. He actually feels for what Chandler does. Like I like that through line of it. There's a lot of infighting in this episode, which again is when I think the show works best, when there's tensions there. Also, what I was surprised in watching this show, and I forgot this, and we see it as the episodes go on, I don't normally like Ross, but Ross is a great friend with Joey. Like, I enjoy it when Ross and Joey are friends. Like, there's a nice scene where Ross is trying to get Joey to forgive Chandler, and then Joey's saying, like, well, if Chandler's not my best friend, now I have space and you can be my best friend. And Ross seems actually touched, and I'm like, oh, that's nice to see them together. And Ross does the nice thing of still trying to get him to forgive Chandler. Like, but this was the first time I feel like I really saw, and maybe I should be saying Matt LeBlanc and David Schwimmer. I don't know if it's Ross and Joey are fun together, because we're going to see in another episode they don't stay in character when they're together. But David Schwimmer and Matt LeBlanc, when they get to play off each other, it's really engaging, actually.
Yeah, I like them together. I think because they're kind of the opposites. Ross is the intellectual, and Joey is just the dumb fun guy. So I think they find ways to make that work pretty well between them.
So, yeah, do you have some thoughts on this episode? Anything you wanted to add to the one with Chandler in a box? I mean, it has to be set at Thanksgiving. It wouldn't work somewhere else.
I don't think it would. I don't think it needed to be a Thanksgiving episode. Because
why else would they all have to be there for dinner if it wasn't Thanksgiving?
I mean, yes, that puts them all together, but come on, they're always all together anyway. You know what I mean? Like,
but Joey is. It's an issue because kind of like Joey and Chandler want to be in the same room, like that kind of tension. That happens with other times too, where it's this tension of. But I feel like this is an episode that is Thanksgiving-y, sort of. You don't?
I think if you needed to, here's what I think. I think they had this kind of idea, this plot line with Kathy and Joey and Chandler at odds, and how do they get over this? And the other side of this that we haven't really mentioned is that Monica gets an injury to her eye and needs to see her eye doctor, who is her former boyfriend, Richard. She's in so much pain, she calls anyway, even though she doesn't want to see him. Turns out he's not there, so they got to see the on-call person. Turns out the on-call person is Richard's son, Timothy Burke. And so there's that angle. And I think that all can happen somewhere other than Thanksgiving. Could be a birthday. You know what I mean? Like, would put them all together. Could be Ross and Rachel's anniversary if they were together at this point. You know, something could have put them together. It doesn't necessarily have to be Thanksgiving in this episode.
I guess it could be any meal. I feel like there is.
I mean, Thanksgiving helps.
Because
certainly it does help, especially at the end when Joey forgives Chandler. It helps that it's Thanksgiving because it does have that warmer feel to it.
Yeah. Well, to move to one that maybe definitely doesn't have to take place at the holidays. Season 5, episode 8 is an episode entitled "The One with All the Thanksgivings." This doesn't really need to be set there, right?
I guess not. Yes, of course it does.
Do you like this episode?
The One with All the Thanksgivings is okay.
Oh.
It's okay.
I was all set for you to say this is your favorite Thanksgiving episode.
No, this isn't my favorite. It's okay. It's fun. I should have.
It's a flashback episode.
It's a multiple flashback episode. It's a present life flashback episode.
Yeah, you don't like flashback episodes, do you?
I don't mind them if they make sense and have some continuity. I think we've talked about the Friends episode where they flash back to before they were all friends, before they were in the situation they were in, where we saw Ross make a move on Phoebe. That episode,
yeah, that's one of my favorite episodes,
and it makes sense. Like there's some continuity to it. It kind of makes sense. It foreshadows Monica and Rachel, or excuse me, Monica and Rachel. That's a Freudian slip. It foreshadows Chandler and Monica.
Chandler and the Duck.
But it's a good episode. And yeah. I also like the pseudo flashback episode where you've got the prom video. Mm-hmm. I like that episode. I think this one is sort of saying, "Hey, those other ones worked. Let's do it again."
So, and we'll get into what each of the flashbacks are in a minute. To get some bearings of where we are by season 5, Monica and Chandler are secretly dating, right? People don't know yet.
Yes, that's correct. Joey might know at this point.
Joey might know, but it's still kind of a secret. Ross and Rachel are together or are not together?
I don't think they are together.
They're not together. And Ross's hair looks different. It's not the weird little crop to the head thing. It's a little more wavy, little early 90s for 1998. This is one where I think that one piece that Monica and Chandler are secretly dating is necessary to the episode, but you probably can't just pick up this episode, because of the flashbacks. Flashbacks are not something you can just lightly walk into because they rely on the knowledge of the character.
Correct.
The first flashback we see, and this ties into the first episode we were talking about, set in 1978. We see Chandler. It's basically Chandler's origin story.
It's Chandler.
We see him
that flashback. Yeah, in this episode, I actually said to my wife that it's Monica's origin story in a way too.
That's true. We kind of see it does a very Star Wars thing where it's a small universe and everybody impacts everyone else.
Yeah.
But in this one we see in the first episode, I think we heard the one where Underdog gets away, the first Thanksgiving episode. Chandler talks about how he hates Thanksgiving. We get a sense that his parents divorced. In this episode, we see him as a child. There's a kid who does a pretty good Chandler impression. He doesn't have to say anything.
Without saying a word, yeah.
Yeah. And we just see him at dinner, and we get the sense that his father's cheating on his mother with their live-in male servant. Is that what it is?
Yes.
Yeah. So we see that. It's a quick kind of, it's a quick scene, almost to the point that if this wasn't a flashback episode, that would have been hilarious to have this one flashback. But we were talking about building Chandler's storyline. It ties things together. It's kind of nice to see that. Do you like seeing a younger actor play Chandler in that moment?
Yeah, that was fine. And I think you need that, and maybe even the Phoebe flashback that comes next, I think, because that sort of wets the palate, so you're used to the flashbacks, and so when you get to the meat of the flashbacks, you're kind of ready for them.
Well, because after the Chandler one, we get a flashback. It's a flashback to an earlier Thanksgiving for Phoebe, set in 1862. She's remembering a past life where she was a nurse in wartime.
And by the way, I don't think we said that the whole crux of these flashbacks is that they were trying to decide who's had the worst Thanksgiving.
Yes.
And so
that's a good point.
That was Chandler's worst Thanksgiving, and this is Phoebe's worst Thanksgiving.
Which is her working as a nurse during, I don't know which war it is. I want to say the Revolutionary War, but that's wrong. Maybe the Civil War?
Maybe
I don't know.
Civil War, yeah.
But she loses an arm. There's an explosion. Her arm falls off. Blood starts spurting out. And she's unfazed by it. But the idea is like, isn't this an awful Thanksgiving? And that's funny, but it's incredibly out of place. Like, that's not the kind of joke this show does.
It's out of place, but...
And it's the kind of joke she could have spoken, but to visually see it.
But that's why I think it is. That's why I think it works, because it is exactly the type of thing she would say.
Yeah.
And then they would react the same way they react when they say, "In this life, Phoebe." And so because we're not seeing Chandler talk about his worst Thanksgiving, we're seeing the visual of it, and then we're not seeing Phoebe talk about her worst Thanksgiving. We're seeing the visual of it. It works, I think. I think it makes sense.
But we're 5 seasons in at this point. We know these characters. Why can't she have a real character building moment? As I think this kind of points out that while Lisa Kudrow is amazing, but what is a Phoebe episode? They never know what to do with her.
I think if we were to be watching the seasons as a whole, we would find some good Phoebe episodes.
I think she's a very good performer, but I think her storylines are pretty light, with the exception of giving birth to twins. Let's make her pregnant to give her a storyline. That's what women are. That's not true. I just feel like I think it's a funny joke. And it's a funny visual, and I get a little bit of what you're saying. It sets the ground. It's visualizing what she normally says. It's just odd. It's just a little jarring. Like I remember it from the episode, and even in watching it, because I really liked this episode the first time I saw it. It's probably not my favorite one now, but I remember that seeming a little jarring at that point.
Yes, I would agree.
But from there, we flash back to 1992, which is actually around the time of the flashback of that episode we were talking about before. And it's 1992. It's Thanksgiving. So we see that Phoebe's living with Monica. Chandler still has his goatee. Everyone's in their 90s clothes. And Joey has a turkey on his head.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes, he does.
I thought that'd be more interesting. This is just a flashback to them being younger. And Joey puts a real turkey on his head, thinking it'd be funny to scare Chandler, but he can't get it off of his head. And it's fine. It actually sets something up for the episode. Are you reading the newspaper?
No, I'm looking at my notes because you're mentioning Joey having a turkey on his head because he wanted to see if he could do it, I believe was the reason.
To scare Chandler. He wanted to scare Chandler.
In season 1, when the Ross storyline was about talking to the baby in the womb, they wanted to... he wasn't sure that the baby could even hear that, and Phoebe suggested that he put his head inside the turkey so he could hear what it sounds like. And I wrote, the reason I turned my page is because I went back to that episode. It's like, I thought I put a note there, and I liked that there was a lot of turkey head jokes throughout these episodes.
2 is a lot, and that's not sarcastic, for head and turkey jokes.
3. It'll be 3.
There'll be 3, that's true. So that bit's funny. I think that, you were saying the Phoebe thing helps you settle into this. I feel like that You could have gone from the Chandler story to that story, and that would ease you into, okay, they're telling flashbacks. Because the next one we get, it doesn't have a date. I think it's 1987, but they don't actually flash a date on the screen that I remember. But I think it's 87. And it flashes back to the first time that the Geller family, Monica and her parents, meet Chandler. He and Ross went to college together. They're coming home from college to have Thanksgiving dinner. And this flashback is one, they had done this, I think, at least once by now. This is kind of when you see the actors in makeup as they're younger. So you get like Monica with that fake nose. You get Rachel with the fake nose. You get an overweight Monica. You get Chandler looking like a flock of seagulls with the haircut. You have Ross looking like a sexual predator. And, part of the joke is just look how silly they look. And I like these bits. I like their performances.
Yeah.
Chandler doesn't really do much, but I love Monica when she's younger. I think that's I like her as that character. I like Rachel's performance. And this is funny. This is a funny little scene that shows them getting together.
Yeah. I enjoy it.
And then it segues to another flashback. I think because what that one's being told, I think because everyone thinks they know what Monica's worst Thanksgiving is.
Right, because that's the Thanksgiving where she overhears Chandler make fun of her weight. Doesn't want to be left alone with her.
Which is harsh because they are dating, and I get that, and I could see that. I'm in that situation where earlier in life you did something that hurt someone, now you're close, and that's always kind of floated there. Like, do you tell them you said that? Or, like, I get that. That's a painful thing. Yeah, and you're talking about it being Monica's origin story. I think that's a good way to put it because the next flashback jumps ahead a year to 1988, Thanksgiving again. Rachel has had her nose job, but everyone's at the Geller's house again. So Rachel, I think, is just out of high school, or maybe she's still in high school.
Probably just out. I'm not sure.
Okay. Just had her nose job. Yeah. Chandler and Ross show up looking like they were on Miami Vice, the way that they're dressed. Is Ross coked up?
I guess
or is he high? He's very twitchy.
I don't think so, but I guess you could imply that. They never really
what he's doing. He's very
it.
glossy-eyed and moving around. But what we see is that Monica comes out and she's very thin. She's Courtney Cox now without the prosthetics of the suit that makes her look bigger.
Yeah,
and the plot is kind of she comes out, Chandler is surprised, and the idea is that she lost all that weight to teach him a lesson.
Right.
Like, I'll teach him. And which is odd. I guess that's how teenagers think. It's an odd body issue.
Yeah.
But then what happened? This flashback, similar to the Phoebe one, goes in a weird direction.
It does. And part of it is very entertaining, and I will always laugh at it, including just recently when we watched these.
So what happens?
It wasn't enough for Monica to come down and show off her new figure and her health. And she jokes, now my heart's not, a problem. It wasn't enough for her to see the reaction on his face. She wanted something more. She wanted him to be far more embarrassed. And so she says that she wants to have him naked out on the front yard. And so Rachel says, well, if you make it seem like you want to have sex with him, he will take off his clothes and then you can somehow get him outside. And so Rachel shows Monica how to seduce him using some of the items in the kitchen. She takes a towel and kind of dabs it to her chest and does a couple other things. And so when Monica has that opportunity, she's alone in the kitchen with Chandler. She tries to do that, but she does it comically well with carrot sticks instead of a towel and a frozen package of peas against her cheek. And then she tries to take a knife, the cold steel of the knife, to put it against her chest. But now she's holding so many things in her hand that she loses control of them. And the knife flies through the air and lands on Chandler's toe, severing the head of the pinky toe away from his foot.
That's a weird plot line, right?
It is weird. Here's why I don't like it. I like everything else about it. I like that bit. What I don't, and I'm fine that the toe comes off, to be perfectly honest. And there's a very funny line from Elliot Gould when the knife goes through the shoe. And Elliot Gould was like, well, of course, it's made of wicker. And just that delivery from Elliot Gould is priceless. I love it. But what happens is when we flash back to modern day, Chandler is very PO'd that this even occurred.
Pissed off.
Pissed off. Yes, I'm sorry for our home viewers. Pissed off. Because...
Thanks for watching your iPod or phone.
Apparently, the fact that he has been without most of his pinky toe has really bothered him for his entire life since that moment. And he didn't realize that it was just an accident and it could have all been avoided. And so he got very, very upset at Monica that this even happened.
Yeah.
And that's
it's been
the
a
part.
full decade at that point. It's been 10 years.
Yeah. And there's been no indication that he's ever had trouble with his foot or his toes. And yeah, so that's the part that bugs me about this. I get it. It's another sitcom contrivance. You have to have him upset so they can make up at the end. But
and have an actual meaningful moment, because what happens is he gets really mad because, and again, this ties into this idea of his arc. It's Thanksgiving. And this is a Thanksgiving where he's with, even though it's secret, he can't tell everyone, he's with Monica trying to enjoy it. So he finds out that she, made him lose his toe, which is a dumb contrivance. Yeah. It's a weird plot. It doesn't fit the show. It's pretty funny, but it's weird.
Yeah, the parts leading up to it are very funny. And the ending I very much enjoy, but the fact that it's around this just has always bugged me.
Yeah, I guess they need him to be mad to go in the other room so that Monica can come cheer him up by putting a turkey on her head, doing a little dance. And
with
that makes him laugh.
Sunglasses and a hat.
And it makes him laugh. He says, "I love you." And they have a funny, meaningful moment, which I like. It's a moment. It's the first time Chandler says, "I love you" to Monica. He immediately is nervous about saying it. And that's a great interplay. And I think
and she loves
they were just missing the bridge to get to that.
Exactly.
I think they were missing how to, because he's not angry. Like, he's annoyed with Thanksgivings, but he wasn't angry. So yeah, it's a little contrived. It's a little plotty, but I like it. I mean, again, this is an episode that's not just about Thanksgiving. It's a step in their relationship. I remember loving this one when it was on. But yeah, it's funny.
I think it's
fine.
I think you love it.
It has to take place at Thanksgiving.
It does have to take place at Thanksgiving. And I think you love it more when it's on, because when it's on, you're in the story. You've watched the previous episode the week before.
Because part of it, the Chandler and Monica storyline, that's what makes it a little more engaging.
I think so, yeah. For sure. Because you do lose that aspect. In fact, I really didn't think about it until just now when you mentioned it, that they were still hiding their relationship in this episode. That didn't really dawn on me as I watched the episode. It hit me at the end, of course, but in that moment, it wasn't a part of what I needed to know to watch the episode. And so I think the episode works a little bit more, still contrived, but it works a little bit more having that lead up.
The last episode we're going to talk about from season 6, it's an episode called "The One Where Ross Got High." This is, it's another Thanksgiving episode. It's built around the meal. Monica's having her parents over, so they're going to prep Thanksgiving. So there'll be all these sorts of troubles. And this is an episode. It does rely on some continuity. I had to think, where is this placed? I thoroughly enjoyed this episode, partly because I didn't know where it was placed.
Oh, yeah?
A little bit. There's a lot going on in this that if you were a fan of Friends, it just came into it. I mean, if you had heard of Friends but just came into this one, I think you can figure the show out. But there's a lot to this. This is, at this point, Monica and Chandler's relationship is open. People know it, not an open relationship, but people are aware it's happening.
Almost everyone.
Well, it's true. Her parents don't know.
Right. That's key.
And so the idea is, when they come over, don't let them know, Monica says, because we find out they don't like Chandler.
Yeah. Which works. Like, that's a contrivance that's never really come up, that they don't like Chandler. We're in season 6. But
I think it has. They didn't like him in the flashback episode previously.
Well, that's true, and that's why it works. But I mean, it's never been spoken outright. It's never been a bit. It's never been a moment where we know for sure that they don't like him. There's always been moments of annoyance with Chandler as being grown-ups compared to the kids here. But there was never like that clear, they just don't like you. But it makes sense throughout these seasons that's believable. It's not something that they just had to create for the purpose of this episode. It makes sense.
Well, and this is the one that it almost plays like kind of like a sequel to the last one we saw, because I feel like coming from the one where the parents first meet Chandler and they seem disgusted by him, coming from is Ross whacked out on coke. With that in my mind, coming to this episode, it did actually feel like there was some childhood continuity now. And I say that because much like the title of the episode, what we find out is Monica's parents don't like Chandler because in their mind they tried to get Ross high on pot once because of a time, and Ross tells the story, where he was smoking pot in his room at home. His parents came in and he told them that Chandler had been in there trying to get him to smoke it, and then he jumped out the window. So basically he blamed Chandler for the pot smell. And that's why they don't like him. And there's two things going on with that. One, that's hilarious. It's hilarious because if we're going to go back in this idea that the Gellers are losers, that Ross and Monica are geeks, I like this Ross experimenting with pot, this doofus in his room smoking pot, and then needing to hide it and lying about it and playing off of this idea that pot is bad. Like, it's funny. It's funny that he, even as an adult now, he has this feeling that, I can't let them know I smoke pot. I get that.
Yeah.
I get that there are things you hide from your parents. What's odd to me, and this isn't odd because it's not believable. It's odd just because it shows how the climate has thankfully changed. It's odd to me that in 1999, that pot, like that, the idea that Monica and Ross's parents would hold on to something like that for 10 years. How dare you get my son to smoke pot like that? The way they're dealing with marijuana smoking is odd, I find, in this.
Yeah.
It's fun. I mean, I think it's of the time. I think that's the weird weight pot had in the 90s.
Sure.
But the other thing is that I don't think that was universal. Like, that would probably play weird to a lot of people. I think in straight-laced homes, probably like mine, yeah, I think pot was kind of like this thing that what you smoke, which is dumb. It's dumb to be fearful of pot, but it's just odd kind of to see that on a TV show. And it makes sense that Ross wants to sidestep it because that's his character and he's like the perfect son, so he wants to maintain that. It's a little sitcom dumb that the parents are still holding on to that.
True.
As adults.
Yeah.
But it's funny.
Yeah.
Thought it was funny.
And any episode that you get Elliot Gould in, I'll take it.
Well, that's good. We get him a couple times here.
Yeah.
This is another episode where Ross and Joey, I like how they interact.
Yeah.
Like I like David Schwimmer and Matt LeBlanc interacting. I had forgotten Elle Macpherson had been on this show.
Sure, yeah.
Joey's dating Elle Macpherson, or she's his roommate.
She's his roommate. So, Chandler has moved in with Monica. Rachel had been living with Joey, but recently moved out. I can't remember if she moved out on her own at this point or if she moved in with Ross. I don't think they're having the kid yet.
No, that's much later.
Yeah, so she or maybe she moved in
she's
with
living
Phoebe.
with Phoebe right now.
Yeah, she's with Phoebe at this point. And so, Joey needed a roommate, and of course he accepted Elle Macpherson.
And so Elle Macpherson is a dancer, I think, a ballet dancer. Am I right? And so she's having Thanksgiving with her friends. So Ross and Joey want her dancer friends. So Ross and Joey are really horny and want to go.
Yeah, because they don't really cook, so they're probably just going to sit around and drink.
Drink wine is what Elle Macpherson's characters say. So they really want to go. And again, this is where it's fun to watch David Schwimmer and Matt LeBlanc be horny for that and want to go to that. It doesn't make sense that Ross does. It doesn't make sense that Ross acts or feels this way. I think if we had seen the previous episodes,
he's in his struggling with relationships era.
But it's just, I mean, were you ever like this? Like, we got to go hang out with the girls. Like, it's a very sitcom vantage point.
I will admit that I was like that. There were times I never was successful at it. But when I found out, there was actually one very specific moment I recall where the girls were hanging out, and your pal Steve Sabelico and I decided...
More names for the viewers not to know. And by viewers, I mean people staring at their phones.
We decided, let's go. Yeah, all the girls are hanging out. Let's totally go over there. We'll bring some chips. We'll bring some dip, because that's how cool we were. We should have brought pot, but instead we brought chips and dip. And it was very unsuccessful. But
so
yes.
what were your what did you think was going to happen, or what did you want to happen?
We were going to just hang out. It was going to be fun. We were going to crack jokes. They were going to laugh at our jokes. We were going to flirt it up, and then we were all going to be making out at the end of the night.
So there's flirting. That I get. The Joey and Ross thing, it seems like, are they expecting to see nudity? Are they expecting to have sex?
They're expecting exactly that. They're expecting to drink. They're expecting to joke. They're expecting to laugh. They're expecting the girls to be a little freer with their will, since the alcohol is in them, and
so
maybe
sex. They're looking for sex.
They're looking for sex.
Were you and your friend looking for sex when you guys did this with your chips and dip?
Yeah.
That
would have been the preferred outcome?
That's the desire. Is that the expectation? Did you think that could happen?
I thought there was a chance that could happen.
So this is a believable.
I believed
plot
it.
line. Really?
Yeah, I totally could get why they wanted to ditch the parents and the friends and the turkey and just hang out with some dancers drinking wine. I'd rather be there.
Do you think it's odd that they're guilted into staying? Because they don't end up going.
I don't think that's odd. That makes sense to me. I think it works. I think Joey probably could have gotten out if he really wanted to.
Mm-hmm. Well, this seems a little bit like first or second season Joey. Not so much sixth season Joey, but it's still fun. And I still enjoy it because, again, I love... If this was David Schwimmer and Matt LeBlanc are horny, I would watch that because that's funny. And I enjoyed it, by the way. I thought it was funny. And another thing that makes this funny, this episode has one of my favorite jokes in it, which we'll get to in a second. But the dessert that Rachel's making, the trifle, this is a little bit of sitcom stupidity, but I will forgive it because of the outcome. I mean, this is a very light episode, so it's fine. Yeah. But the recipe she's making, it's in a magazine. And the recipe, we hear her describe it to Joey and Ross as being like, it's a layer of custard, a layer of sweets, a jam, layer of meat, and more whipped cream.
Seasoned meat with peas.
Which is disgusting, which is jarringly disgusting. And it turns out that, Rachel walks away. Ross picks up the magazine to look at the recipe, and he goes, "Oh my God. These pages are stuck together," meaning that she's been reading two different recipes.
Right, she combined two different recipes.
And before we go any further, his statement of, "Oh my God, the pages are stuck together," leads to what I think is one of the funniest jokes ever on this show, is that Joey looks over angrily and goes, "Chandler," as if to insinuate he's been masturbating into another magazine, and that is pretty funny. But what's odd about this is, one, I don't know magazines. It's recipes back to back to back in magazines. That seems odd to me. But two, Rachel has to be dumb for this to work. I'm glad that it works because the outcome is pretty funny. But she does have to be dumbed down a little, which is fine because she. What happens is she makes. What was that?
Well, I was going to say she's got to be dumbed down a little, but I mean she's grown. Wasn't very worldly when the show started, and she's grown.
That's why it's dumbing down.
But one thing she hasn't done. No, I don't think she has. I don't think she has cooked by now. I don't think we could go back and find an episode where she put a meal together for anyone.
But Monica has a very humane sign of growth when there's a joke that even Rachel assumes that Monica's making a backup dessert in case hers goes wrong. And Monica says, "No, she's got this," or whatever it is that she says. Like, Monica is trusting Rachel to make dessert. I thought that was nice. She's trusting I thought that was sweet.
I think she's showing support in a time when Rachel needs it because she's never done this before. So I think they set it up okay. I agree. It's a dumb sitcom thing, but I think they do an okay job putting enough believability, suspension of disbelief in the situation that you can kind of go with it.
Mm-hmm. And it's worth the payoff.
Yes.
Because ultimately what happens is she goes to serve the dessert. And once dessert is over, it's set up that Joey and Ross can leave. So she serves the dessert to everyone. And then in one of those moments where, as long as somebody's at the table, the people at the couch, nobody can hear them, Monica or Ross explains what Rachel did and says everybody has to pretend to enjoy it. And we have a pretty funny sequence of Rachel coming in and everyone eating it or getting out of eating it by saying certain things.
Yeah, Phoebe geniusly says, "Oh, is this a traditional English trifle? So it has meat? Oh, I can't eat this."
Which is the only thing Phoebe has to do because her subplot in this episode is ridiculous.
It's pointless.
She had a horn dog dream about Mr. Geller.
A horn dog dream? It's not a sex
What is it
dream?
called?
You're quoting? I just would have called it a sex dream.
I couldn't. I didn't know what to call it. I don't know why I chose horn dog. She has a wet dream about Mr. Geller, and the whole time now she's viewing him that way. It's like she delivers the lines so well, but just like this is what they give her.
Yeah.
I mean, she needs a plot, I guess, but is that something that happens? Do you really? I guess you do. I guess you can have a dream about someone you find them attractive, but I just feel like they don't know what to do with her. Ever at Thanksgiving, at least. But everybody, fakes their way through the dessert, and you get a pretty funny scene of Ross and Joey eating it, where Ross is struggling to swallow it, turns to Joey, and makes the statement that it tastes like feet.
Yeah.
And have you ever watched the gag reel from this season and how difficult it was to get through that? It is a pretty funny.
It is.
David Schwimmer can be funny.
Oh, David Schwimmer can be very funny.
I hate Ross, but David Schwimmer can be funny. And it's a funny scene. It's and again, it's comical. It's broad.
Yeah.
And I feel like the Thanksgiving episodes, that's great. They're like these stage plays. It's like dysfunctional family meals, and it's great. And ultimately, Monica and Ross's parents talk about how they didn't like Chandler because he smoked. Ross is forced to admit that Chandler didn't make him smoke pot, whatever it was. His parents end up liking them. Like, it's a nice outcome. It's a nice arc, like you were saying, for Chandler, because he gets acceptance, he gets to be mature, he gets some change, and it's done through this holiday.
Yeah.
Like, this episode, this one has to take place at Thanksgiving, right? This particular one?
I would think so. I mean, you could stretch it and have it just be around any sort of important meal, but it works. It has to be Thanksgiving because otherwise, Janine, Elle McPherson's character, and her friends wouldn't necessarily be together. The parents wouldn't be over necessarily. Yeah, Thanksgiving is really needed here, I think.
Yeah, and it's fun. I mean, we're watching it out of context with the other shows, but I feel like this show tapped into something there. Like, I enjoyed watching these, honestly. I enjoyed watching I watched all 6 in a row, and it was fun.
Yeah.
On the one with the list, it's a good episode, but not really a Thanksgiving one. That first Underdog one felt the most real to me, even though that's the one I remembered the least. Like, I don't know how often I've actually seen that one.
Right.
What was your favorite one of these? What one did you like the most?
I go back and forth. I thought this might come up, so I was trying to list out which ones I liked the most. I really probably laughed the most at this last episode. The season 6 episode. That one I love the most. The trifle bit, I've always enjoyed since I first saw it. I reference the trifle now and again, so I really like that episode. And then it's almost a tie with season 4, Chandler in a Box.
Oh, okay.
Is probably my next one.
Watching these episodes, just like when we watched season 3 over almost 2 years ago now, this show works because it takes me back. Like, we were living in a strange parallel, not exactly to the show when it was on. We were of the right age.
Yeah.
I know sometimes we mimicked the show in our own life, but I think the show reflected, and I forget this, the show did for a while at least reflect a lot of what it means to first be on your own. Why there are these friends in this tight-knit group is because of how alone you are when you leave home. You build these communities of friends and you do everything together, including the holidays. And I did. I used to be like that. I don't do that so much anymore, but that friendship circle is probably why the show hits me so well, why I can keep going back to it. Because honestly, not every episode lives up to it. I've watched various episodes and I have a hard time watching the show sometimes, partly because I watched it into the ground. Yeah. I watched it so much, but it's still very touching. It's still very relatable, and it takes me back, especially seasons 3, 4, and 5 really take me back to that age of living that life, but also just watching that show quite often with you for a good majority of it. Those are, that's a nice memory. Yeah. I feel this show, Friends, is very key for me to understanding our friendship, I think. I think we both enjoyed it. I think, again, there was something to understand in it and also to mimic of it. And I don't know. I think that's great. I'm happy to return to it.
I think a lot of the parties we would throw, we just were doing that so there could be Friends moments.
And it was fun, though. That's the thing. It was fun to live out loudly, drunkenly, whatever, the sitcom trope-filled existence. And I do miss that.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if I could do it now, but I definitely miss that. And I think it's whatever it was. I don't know if everybody does that.
Tim, this is just hitting me right now. I'm saying these words as I think them, but I think we should start a crowdfunding campaign that our listeners can support to allow for us to be roommates again for X amount of time. Let's see if we can do it again. That'd be great. Let's see if we can get someone to pay for
the fun
for that.
To go fund us to get an apartment at current Alston prices in Alston, Massachusetts. Listeners, both of you, see what you can do with that. Get on that.
And
Bob
we
and I
will document it, and we will podcast it, and it'll be a whole thing. And we'll see if we can relive our 90s, our friends' 90s.
That sounds very plausible.
And because we have a year until next Thanksgiving, we can get the funding in time for us to have it be around Thanksgiving. We'll throw a Thanksgiving party feast.
All right. Yeah. So how do you donate, people? Well, if you want to donate to this cause of Bob and I living in a New England apartment together, check out 20popcast.com. That's what we do at the end of the show, because that's what we just hit. 20popcast.com. It's the home of this show you just listened to that you're about to throw your money at so we can do another show. Yeah, that's what you're going to do.
I'm going to do this. I'm going to set it up. I'm going to do it.
All right. Well, then there'll be a link. There'll be a link at 20popcast.com, which also has links to the show. This podcast. The most recent episode's always up there streaming. There's also links to all of our past episodes. You also find ways, if you like the show, to subscribe to it. You can subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, on Stitcher, on various Android devices, Google Play. I would ask, if you do enjoy the show, please subscribe to it. If you can leave a review, that helps us out. Leave a little review. I know it takes a little time to do, but all that helps us out. How exactly, I'm not sure. I always say it helps us out, and then in my head I'm like, it shows us who's listening, but I don't know. It's just nice to read. It's a popularity thing. I'm selfish. Make us look good. I don't know. But yeah, check out 20popcast.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at 20popcast, on Instagram at 20popcast, and there's a third thing I'm forgetting what it is. Bob, we have to bring this to a close, so why don't you say some things about yourself?
Sure. Keep an eye out for that crowdfunding link. I am excited about that. Some of the things that you can earn is actually an invitation to that Thanksgiving dinner. So keep that in mind. Keep a lookout for that. And
Jesus Christ.
You can follow me on Twitter as well, RH Canning. I think, Tim, when you ask people to write, I think we just want to know you're out there. That's really what I think we need. We need just a little bit more interaction, so we know that there's people listening and ready to donate funding to our
double digits
grand
people.
Ideas.
We want to know that 10 people are going to help us rent an apartment for the contractual obligated amount of time the lease specifies. Thanks for listening. Good luck digesting your meal. It is Thanksgiving and all that. I feel like this ending fell apart, but thankfully we have that GoFundMe campaign to look forward to. So yes, get your Bitcoins out of the storage vault. How does that work? How does a Bitcoin work?
I have no clue.
I don't have any clue, but listeners, if you do, sure, we accept Bitcoin, doubloons, that paper money with the Monopoly man. We'll take it. We'll take it. I've been wasted on whiskey doing this before, and it hasn't been a big deal. But the mention of a single medicinal gummy And you're like, oh, I don't, where's my bloodhound friend to take a bite out of this?
That's not what I was saying. That's just how
I said that.
You implied
that's how,
yeah.
No, that's how I heard it, which doesn't mean it's you're right. Actually, you said implied, or I inferred it.
You inferred it.
I inferred it.
I did not imply it. Something like that.
Yeah, no, I apologize, but still,
That's
it was
all right.
kind of odd that you having texted me to get you some whiskey, which would have been difficult to do, that you were like, whoa.
Oh, and alcohol?
Gummie?
Because when I got home and I had dinner and I poured myself some,
That's not how the text read.
Well, my daughter asked, "Are you having alcohol?" And so we made this joke about how she was saying that, and that's why I wrote it that way in the text. That I thought was going to my wife.
Okay, but why did you send it to me?
Because
you thought it was
my
understandable.